So this is the first long form video that I'm doing. It's not so much for my dad because he's probably unable to process this kind of long form videos. He's got really short attention span, which is a result of his I think his 30 years of diabetes, which has wired his brain for instant gratification. We'll talk about that more later. This long form video is more of an outlet for me to vent and also to maybe get advice from viewers who are in the same situation. I'm a 43-year-old Singaporean living in Australia, and I am incredibly lucky that I get to live here in Australia because I did inherit a lot of bad eating habits from my dad and from just being in Singapore, because food is just so readily available. So coming to Australia, I have to prepare my own meals and you know, gradually I learn more about nutrition and what's good for me and what makes me feel good. So I think I'm blessed. I'm also very lucky that I get to work from home, and I have this flexibility that I can go back to Singapore to take care of my dad. So it's come to a point that my dad has a stroke a few weeks ago, and you know, I just think that we need this drastic intervention, and I need to come up with a plan. That's the reason I'm coming up with this channel, is to make myself accountable and also to follow through with this plan I have. In this long form video, I want to discuss the different tools that I use that I find helpful, and also talk about my dad's diabetes and his different complications in detail. Okay, so number one, I think we're very lucky in this day and age. We got a lot of free information and really good information from the best scientists and doctors. Huberman and Diary of a CEO. I'll put the link and details here. There's a lot more from all these very good scientists. Very helpful if you are into all this. You can geek out and learn a lot. Also, number two, I use ChatGPT. This is free and it's been really helpful. I use ChatGPT to process like the MRI report that I got from the hospital about my dad's stroke. You know, it puts it out in detail and in English that you can understand. That's very helpful. So my dad, he's 71 years old and with over 20-30 years of history of diabetes. He used to be a shift worker, so that isn't the best for his health. And since he retired, you know, everything gone downhill really quick. Throughout his entire life, he always enjoyed eating very heavy carb meals. You know, he likes to eat a lot of rice. He likes to eat very starchy stuff. You know, he likes to eat his rice with a lot of curry sauce. That's just the kind of belief the people of his generation, I guess. You know, like, you know, he has to eat a lot to get energy to do work. Since he retired, he's got too much time and he hasn't got much purpose, you know, like he doesn't have any interest in anything. I just describe like how his average day goes by. Say he wake up at 10 a.m, go down to the kopitiam for his breakfast, where he will get this big plate of cha mi, right, fried noodles, just 99% refined carbohydrates, and that is what he's looking forward to every day, you know. And once he have that craving fulfilled, you know, he would go about and do his thing. Last year I managed to get him to go to the gym, so he's been doing that, and then he goes to the gym But I realized that, you know, it wasn't a good idea, because that gave him the idea that, oh, I went to the gym and then I can reward myself with like another heavy carb meal. And that's what he do. I don't know what exactly he does in the gym. It's probably a bad idea to introduce him to the gym. We need to know that you can never exercise yourself out of a bad diet. I rather you eat healthy and then you don't exercise. Okay, anyway, so after he have his lunch, yeah, he would go back home and crash, because that's when his blood sugar will spike and then crash, right? He just has no energy to do anything. When he crashes, you know, he has very, very severe obstructive sleep apnea. I do suffer from that as well. And you can see when he's sleeping, he's just choking, you know, constantly choking. Every 5 minutes he would, you know, and choke, and then wake up and then go back and sleep and then repeat. And then when he finally gets his rest, he will wake up, say after 2-3 hours. I can see he's not energized, you know. Once he wake up, the next thing he do is look for his refined carbohydrates. You know, that's the only thing in his mind, you know. Once you wake up, he'll go straight to look for that. And pretty much, you know, he has no day or night, no lunch or dinner. He just goes about doing this all day. That's just what he does all day. So it happens after dinner, right? He usually has his dinner very late as well. He has his dinner maybe 8, 9. Thing is, you know, in the middle of the night, he would just wake up and raid the fridge for fruits, for anything, just to, you know, sustain him for that craving. And the cycle just repeats. You know, he has his glucose spike and then crash. So the whole day just goes on like that, one vicious cycle, one after another. When you get a stroke, that means your body is telling you, it's giving you the last warning. You know, it's telling you you fuck up and you need to change your ways, because you've been doing it wrong all this while. There's so many problems with my dad, okay, but let's just go through a few. Number 1, sleep apnea, obstructive sleep, and he's got very severe, you know, and I suffer from that as well. I've been trying to tell him over and over again that he chokes in his sleep, and when he wakes up he doesn't get that rest that his body requires. I know it because I suffer from that myself. And what do? I just one simple solution. I stick a tape on my mouth every time I sleep, right? And that's just a very simple way to mitigate this problem. I would say it's not really a solution, but at least it helps a lot, you know. But somebody as serious as my dad should get a CPAP, right? But, you know, he doesn't even believe in taping his mouth, let alone putting a machine to sleep. But I believe that, you know, sleep is so essential for his body's recovery. I mean, if he doesn't even get this recovery during sleep, how is he able to, you know, it just goes in a vicious cycle, you know. Number 1, he has to cure his sleeping problem so that his body can try to recover. I think that is so crucial before we talk about his diet and all. Second, I think he has a, where do we go? He has some eyes problem, definitely, because he got swollen eyes. That's complications from his diabetes. Let's go to the brain. Like I said before, he's got his brain has been wired for instant gratification. You can tell that because he has no attention span. He cannot focus on anything, you know, and he is constantly on his phone. He's addicted to mindless scrolling, you know. He rather just watch all this rubbish on TikTok, just absolute rubbish, than watch all this information that I give him, all these health videos that I give him, you know. And that is the reason why I make all these short form videos for him to watch. But I don't think he's watching either. So his brain has been wired for instant gratification. He's always looking for that sugar hit, crash, spike, crash, repeat, spike, crash, repeat. You know, the same as a drug addict. What else? Hearing. He's got loss of hearing since don't know how 10 years ago, 20 years, I don't know, like forever. Right? And then we've been trying to tell him to get his ears checked, but he doesn't believe anything you tell him. He doesn't believe that he's got sleep apnea. He doesn't believe that it's loss of hearing. He can't poop, right? He's at a stage where he can't shit at all. He's very constipated, so a lot of toxins are just building up every day. Well, I mean, that can be mitigated with just eating more fiber. Just try to get more green veggies into your diet. He tries to do that, but he does it by eating fruits, and that's his outlet. He likes to binge out on fruits. Well, you do get a lot of vitamins, fiber from fruits, but you also get a lot of sugar, right? And why do that when you can just get your fiber from green veggies? Of course, it's difficult for a sugar addict like him. So what I'm really worried about is his pancreas, right? Because he has been losing weight over the years. You can see that he's not putting on weight at all. In fact, he's just getting thinner and thinner. So that's really tricky, because what's really essential for his recovery, which is to go into a keto diet, and yet it can be dangerous for him. So his pancreas, his liver, most likely he has a lot of visceral fat in his organs, his liver and pancreas, even though he's just skinny on the outside but fat on the inside. So this is another big problem that I have addressed before to him. You can never cure diabetes from medication, from taking medication. But that's just what all the doctors do. They just increase their dosage. So my dad has been taking a lot of metformin. Well, one of the complications from long-term usage of metformin is that the patient becomes B12 deficient. That means low energy. That results in low energy, right? When the patient is low on B12, he just has no energy to do anything, And that's not something that the doctor is going to tell you or give you some B12 supplement. No, never, man. Doctors never did that, right? Instead of always doubling down on medication, why don't we address the root cause of this problem? And what is the root cause? The root cause is simple. It's just diet. Why don't we just address diet, But doctors, they are not trained to do so, Doctors are only trained to just give you more medication. And that's just a sad part of reality. Oh, one more thing that I want to talk about for tools, right, is that we got information, free information. We've got ChatGPT, okay? And number 3 is we have to use CGM, continuous glucose monitors. I have to get my dad to put on a CGM. Why? There's no way out that you can say in the middle of the night I want to get something to eat, and then nobody knows about it, because that will be recorded. There's no way out. And it's so important, because everything you do and everything you eat, right, has a result, and you can see how all these different food affects you. And I think that's really important for my dad and any diabetics. That's probably all I got for today. I was feeling a bit frustrated. I emailed the hospital to talk about the diet they have been giving my dad, you know. Like, how can you treat how can you give a diabetes patient all this food, right? It's like treating a cocaine addict and then you're giving him cocaine for recovery. Just everything is wrong about this system, you know. It's just so tricky, this thing. That's why I made this channel, right? Because it's just not going to be so straightforward. It's going to be a very, very difficult challenge ahead, and I just want to follow through and make sure that we get this right. Because I've tried so many times, you know. Like last year, I tried, you know, and it just comes to a point, you know, you just lose, you know, you just can't nag anymore, and then you give up, right? And then you let him be. But the next thing you know, he just goes back to his ways, and then boom, he's got a stroke now. So this is just we are at the cliff, you know. If he goes further, it's going to, a lot of things are just going to happen. A lot of bad things are just going to happen. So let's not go there. Let's not go there. We have to implement this drastic intervention. And I want to show my commitment that we can do this right. We can do this right. It's not going to be easy, but we can do it. And you know, I'm doing all this for my dad, but he doesn't even listen. He doesn't even appreciate it, right? But well, I just gotta do it, right? I mean, my mom, it's difficult for my mom. It's been very difficult for my mom. He doesn't listen to my mom, right? And then my mom's just having a very difficult time. My brother, he doesn't want to talk too much because he knows it's just end up like me and my mom nagging at him. My brother knows it, so he doesn't say anything, you know. And he's going away. My brother's going away to the US, and it's only fair, you know, because I've been away from Singapore for the last 10 years. So it's my turn to go back to Singapore to take care of him. You know, I'm incredibly lucky that I get to live here in Australia. Sorry. But it's just time for me to go back, alright, and get this right. That's all.